Alright then, so we're almost at the point now where we're ready to start using Firebase Auth to sign up our users to this application. But before we do that, I just want to talk a little bit about how we'll be storing our user data. So imagine that everything on the left over here is running in the browser, the client, and that's our Vue application, and everything on the right over here is the server, which is running on Firebase. So to begin with, we'll be using the Firebase Auth service to authenticate all of our users. Now this Firebase service takes a username and a password from our user, so we'll be filling those out in a form in our application. It takes those and it signs them up, and it stores them in a separate kind of database, not a Firestore database. It sets them up in a Firebase Auth database and stores their email and password along with some other data such as a unique ID. So Firebase Auth is going to take care of all of this for us and store an authentication record for each individual user. Now the thing is, we also want to store additional information about each user, such as the geolocation or the alias, etc. Now we can't just store that inside this authentication service over here. It won't let us do that. Instead, what we have to do is we have to set up a new record separately for each individual user in our own Firestore database collection. And that's what we'll do. We'll set up a Firestore and we'll set up a users collection inside that Firestore database. And inside that users collection, each user will have their own record or document. And each of those records will have a geolocation and alias property. Now, we do also need a way to link up a record from here, a user from here, with a user from here. To say which user over here belongs to which record over here. We need some kind of link between the two. So to do that, what we'll do is take this ID that is auto-generated by the Firebase Auth service when we sign a user up. We'll take that and we'll store that as a property inside this collection over here. So each user inside this collection on our Firestore database will have this user ID, and that will correspond to an ID of a user over here generated by the Firebase Auth service. Make sense? So now we know how we're storing the data there. I just want to take a minute to talk a little bit more about this users collection and how we're going to structure these documents. So in previous chapters, for example, when we did the Ninja Smoothies project, what we did is we had our Smoothies collection, and these are the different documents inside that collection. Now, whenever we added a new smoothie, the Firestore would auto-generate this unique ID for each different record or document right here. That was auto-generated. Then we'd have the properties such as the name and the ingredients nested in those documents. Now this time around, I want to do something a little bit different. Instead of letting the Firestore generate these unique IDs, instead what I'd like to do is take the alias of each user, such as the NetNinja or the Vue Avenger, and I've spelled that incorrectly, and I want to slugify those. And once we've slugified them, then we let that be the identifier. Okay, so the NetNinja with hyphens, or the Vue Avenger, or the Firebase Fiend, etc. So the reason we'll be doing this is because later on it will be easy to identify if a certain alias is unique. Now we don't have to do it this way. There's different ways of doing everything. This is just one of the ways we can do it. And we'll also be using this slugified version of the alias as part of the URL to this user's profile page later on. So now we know roughly how we'll be structuring the data. Let's start by enabling authentication for our app inside our Firebase console. So to enable authentication, you want to go to your console, and if we go to authentication over here on the left, we can see we can set up a sign-in method. Now there's various different methods a user can use to sign up to your application, and Firebase supports a lot of them, such as Google, Facebook, Twitter, GitHub, etc. We're going to go with this one right here, email and password. So click on this little pen over here and click enable, then click save. Okay, so now email and password authentication for this app right here has been enabled. So we'll start the authentication process in the very next video.